So I want to see if people pop into this live. We'll see what happens. So I wanted to do a video today, and I prefer to do it live, and my phone is very much giving me issues for the last month. So this is pretty much the only place I can kind of get it out and hopefully screen record it. But it's very much live. And I kind of prefer it to be that way because I really want to be, I don't want to like sit there in front of like a background and like talk about this. And I wasn't able to sleep last night. And so I'm just going to do my coffee, got my vision board in the back, and I'm at Higher Grounds Coffee Shop in Oklahoma City. Shout out, love you. Been keeping me rolling for the last few days. So okay, so I'm just going to talk about Kill Tony, and I'm going to be extremely, hopefully, as respectful as I can be. I don't want to be an ass about this, but I also want to explain my side of the story because I have been getting some flack, and I knew that would happen, but I've also gotten a lot of support, so it's kind of a mixed bag right now regarding the show and regarding what happened last night on the recording of Kill Tony. Now, this recording was actually last Monday, so the show's release dates are a week behind, so I've already just kind of been sitting with my demons and my energy and my angels and my grandparents and my ancestors, or however you want to look at it spiritually, for the last 7 days. And thinking about my future in stand-up comedy, thinking about why I do this, thinking about the purpose of doing stand-up comedy, and why I actually am going to stay here in stand-up comedy, even though, this is a blip, I guess, or a glitch on maybe my reputation, or maybe just how I conduct myself in the realm of stand-up comedy. I'm no angel or saint. I'm just a comic that's trying to do a good job, trying to do my work. And what happened on the Kill Tony show is, during quarantine, it was the only show kind of still recording out of LA. And a brief backstory is I moved to LA this time last year, in early January of last year, for the second time. The first time I had to move to Maryland because a family member of mine got really ill, and it just kind of all fell apart at once. So I just was in Maryland, and during that time I was working in the DMV, doing as many shows in the DMV as possible. That's DC, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Jersey, a little bit New York, just trying to do as many shows in all the cow towns in the area and do like everything I could. But the whole time on my mind in that area was the Comedy Store. It's always been about, will I ever be funny enough to get to the Comedy Store? And that was always the goal. That's always what kept me going. That was always my driving factor. That was always what I wanted for myself. And was being called towards. I mean, it was like a visceral pull. I can't really explain it, but it was just like, oh my God, the Comedy Store. And I was lucky before in 2018 to have gotten on some of the potluck mics at the Comedy Store. I got on their Sunday mic in the belly room, and then I did get on Kill Tony for the first time in October of 2018. And that was even an important time frame because a lot of my friends, we all kind of got on within the same few weeks of each other, and it was very supportive. And so when I went back to Los Angeles this time last year, my commitment was, sign up for potluck every Monday. I was thinking about signing up for Kill Tony again. I think I put my name in like once. But I wasn't, I was watching Kill Tony. I went to watch, and I had road stuff, and I had a contract at the time that was a monthly contract still in Washington, D.C. for teaching astrology at a place called The Wing, which, is an all women's, it's kind of like a WeWork sort of situation for women, but it's a lot more than that. They have events, they have gatherings, they have groups, they have many awesome people that I met, and I was their DC Wing astrologer. So I had a gig with them in the beginning of 2019 that I really, really was proud of. And then I was building road gigs around that. So my goal for 2020 was to build up as many road dates as possible and keep it moving, but also keep Monday at the Comedy Store my goal. So even if I were out on the road, even if I were doing different things, I would still always be kind of keeping a presence at the Comedy Store. Not only because it was my dream to be at the Comedy Store, my goal was to work the door. That was always the goal for me. That's really what I wanted, was to work the door. And the reason I wanted to work the door is because I really love watching comedy. I love learning. I love understanding. I love going there and staying until 1 or 2 in the morning and sitting in the back and hearing just the sheer madness and amazingness that would happen at late hours when like 4 people were in the crowd. Or, even like when you're going from a show and you're walking down and you get to peek into the main room while there's like heat being thrown on stage, and you're just like, holy fuck, like that's that, like I remember the earlier in 2020 looking in, and Sarah Silverman was on stage, and I had a fucking like party in my heart. Like I was like, I am a girl from Laurel, Maryland, who never once ever thought that I would be in this place, let alone looking into a room where Sarah Silverman's on stage, or where whoever is on stage is on stage. Like, it's just, it baffles me, and I started comedy a lot later in life. I had a whole career before this in science, and quite honestly, like, I had gone back and forth over the years. Should I go back into science? Should I not? Like, I did not plan for any of being on Facebook or being on Instagram. I had a Facebook back in the day when I was in science, but I didn't really use it, and social media is all like, it's not a second, it doesn't come second nature to me. It's something that I have to really work through. And so backtracking, or going forward, I guess, to last Monday, when I saw that Kill Tony was recording out of this Comedy Store in September, I made my way from 29 Palms, California. I was living in the middle of the desert. It was not an easy trek. I mean, I did not even live on, I did not live on any paved roads. Like, it was a tough trek to go between the area I lived in 29 Palms to the Comedy Store. And I went there not knowing if they were recording, not knowing if there was a bucket selection process for Kill Tony, not really knowing, because all of California, or all of Los Angeles, had been completely shut down for a really long time, and they were just getting restaurants back. I had done one open mic in Prescott, Arizona, which was something that I made a decision on. And it was a scary decision at the time. I mean, things were not moving the way that they've begun to move in certain parts of the country now. So it was like taking a really big risk, driving, and not knowing what I was gonna be meeting up with at the time, not knowing what I was gonna find when I got to the Comedy Store. And so that first time at the Comedy Store, nobody was there. I got there at 5:30, and I kind of waited. Eventually Tony drove in, and I just walked up to him and I said, "Hey, how do I sign up for this?" And he's like, "Do you want to get on today? Come with me." And it was that easy. Like, it was just like, oh, but I was like there extremely early and nobody was there. And it was a desolate world, and it's hard to explain what the Comedy Store is or was like during these COVID times, because it had a different vibe. It was very sad, and people were bummed. And I was like, well, I'm just not going to stop. I'm just going to keep viewing this as my job to do, like something to look forward to. And I did the first recording and it went okay. Like, I had done one open mic since, the September open mic. And I guess it was like the following week I got up. So Friday open mic, Monday Kill Tony. And so, the joke I kind of wrote the night before, timed it on my phone. As comics, most of us have to like try in front of a crowd to hear how it sounds. And I was like, I guess this will be a minute. I don't know, but I wrote it fresh. And I wrote it fresh, and I tried it out in the mirror and with a stopwatch. And I was like, I hope this goes to a minute. I went over the minute on my first recording. I think I did a minute 30. But the interview went pretty well. And afterwards, I was asked to come back. He said, come back in 2 weeks. So I did. I made it a ritual. I made it a commitment to go back every week, at least to be there. The only time I wasn't there on a Monday was when I had to go to the hospital. I had to go to the emergency room during one of the weeks during this whole stretch. And I made it a commitment to make this something as a goal to just get better, because I'm not a 1 minute one-liner comedian. I'm a rant comic. I'm a long form story writer. Like, this was something that I saw as a challenge, especially during a really depressing and hard time for a lot of people. So for me, I really wanted to make sure that I committed to writing. And that was what this was. The second time I got on, so the first one was an episode, I think Alex Hooper was the guest, just for reference for looking up episodes. So it was just like the first time back. Then I was on another episode with, I was supposed to be back for those 2 weeks. I drove from Tucson, Arizona, and was kind of met with a little bit of hostility because they had overbooked. And that's not my fault. I made the commitment to be at the place. I was there. And was told, well, your episode's coming out next week or today. And then this guy came in and I gave him the spot just to be a team player. And I got up, I think it was the following week, And that episode, for reference, is with Sarah Weinschenk as the guest, and she was really awesome. She was really nice to us. In the meantime, like, me and my friends were all supporting each other. I have a great friend who's on this live now. Her and I were supporting each other through this. She was getting on. We were really rocking it. We were really working hard to, like, be funny and do it even amongst all odds of what's going on in the country, what's going on in the world, and what was going on at that time at that place. So on that episode, I did a joke that I really love, and I shortened it for time. And it's a joke that I really, really, really love. I will probably still be doing it live because I've expanded it and added a bit to it and stuff like that. But on that episode, at the end of my interview, Tony said, "Would you like a monthly?" And the first Monday of every month. And I wasn't asking for shit, right? I was just doing the work. I didn't ask that, and it meant the world, because at the time I was like, holy shit. Like, even during a pandemic, when everybody's going through this really awesome thing happens, and it means so much. It means everything. And I really took it seriously. You know, I still went on the road during that time. I went to, I believe it was Salt Lake City. You know, in between, like, I was still going to Arizona. And I was still doing the road while prepping for this, because I knew that I had to be really funny. If this was something that I was going to do, it was a monthly astrology comedy spot. But the thing that I want to really make sure that people understand, because of last night's recording of Kill Tony, I wasn't trying to be a Karen. I wasn't trying to say I was any funnier. I'm nowhere near David or William, and especially not Michael. Especially not Michael, who is one of my favorite people, one of my favorite comics, one of my favorite people in the world. But what happened on the show last night is a reflection of being given this monthly spot. Now, I was told, you know, you were never a regular, which, if we're going to analyze the definition of regular is a reoccurring role. Regular, by definition, is something that you do on a consistent basis. So this was a consistent spot. If we're going to get into deep semantics, if we're going to get into the deep words of it, it was a consistent spot that was given to me. And I really took it seriously. And it was an honor to me, because there's not a lot of women that got this role on this particular show, and I knew that I had to really do it justice. I really had to be funny, and I made sure that I always, not demanded, but came in there with a minute, with a minute of comedy. And a lot of my jokes are not, boom, a minute. So I had to really, really, sit with my jokes and really think about what would work for that show. And it really did teach me a lot. It taught me how to really work with time. It taught me a lot. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very appreciative of that. And the thing that was tough for me last night on Kill Tony, and there were other recordings too. So for reference, people can go back and look at the other episodes and see that I get called up as the monthly regular. But the wording on that would get switched around. And the thing about that is, that's why I always wanted to make sure I did my minute, because I realized that it was a very fine line on being typecasted. And I had to make sure that, I'm a comic through and through. I work really hard as a comic, and I didn't want to just be pegged into a corner as the witch or the psychic or the tarot reader. So I really wanted to make sure, even when I did like the interviews as a psychic or a tarot reader, that I was still roasting them back, that I was still working with the vibes of the room. Now things changed in Austin. I moved to Austin, Texas, not just for the Kill Tony show, but because stand-up comedy is going on in Austin right now. And it's one of the hubs of stand-up comedy right now. And I moved there a full month before the Kill Tony show even moved to Austin. I moved there in the first week of December. And it was not an easy task, and it was not an easy decision to leave Joshua Tree, California, to move to Austin. But I did it because, I needed more stage time. And also, I took this gig, this role, very, if I'm going to get a regular spot, I'm going to be there and show up and do my job. Now, I had messaged both parties involved on the show that they knew, like, they got messages that I was in Austin. So, I'm just working with my voice here. They got messages that I was in Austin, and it's not like I was bothering any of them. Tony and I had been in correspondence before for show taping times. Like, hey, can you do the 6 or the 8 tonight? Like, things like that. So it was really just a matter of, like, scheduling. And there was no indication on that last taping that my spot had been dissolved or anything like that. And before anybody makes the joke, well, you're psychic, you should know, I had a weird feeling, just by the way that I was treated. On that last taping, I had to fight for that, because it became like, you have a monthly spot on the first Monday of the month, to it's on the second Monday of the month, to fighting for it like bucket style that last taping, where I had to kind of muscle my way in there and be like, this is going to be a monthly taping, is the monthly involved here? And that's the behind the scenes part that is why I made the decision I made in Austin, Texas. Because it's not so much like, it's not me saying, oh my God, I deserve my spot, I deserve this. It's because there was a comment made on the recording of this week's episode that if you give somebody an inch, they'll take a mile. And the thing is, the spot had been dissolved without them saying, hey, you guys, no more, hey, thanks for being here. When we move to Texas, you're going to have to go back in the bucket, just because, this was for this leg of the show, and now we're kind of restarting. How long did that take me to say? 2 seconds? You can send it in a message that I sent back, like, hey, we'll see you, but we're going to have you back in the bucket. No shade to you. And I'm not asking for special treatment. But if you give somebody a job, they're going to show up for their job. At least that's how I am. In stand-up comedy, I am a factory worker. I will show up for my fucking factory clock in. And I was there the first Monday of the month. There were 2 of us in line at like 5 p.m. And I waited for them. And I had this sinking feeling on New Year's Eve night that something was about to go down. That something was not right. Something was amiss. I felt like something just doesn't feel right. I know that it's going to be what it is on Monday, and I'm just going to have to roll with the punches and just remind myself how I even got here in the first place. So I got there Monday. I was in line. I saw all of the crew. Some, they waved to me. They said hello. Some people came over and gave me hugs. But I realized from body language and from the way that things were happening, this regular spot does not exist anymore, and I'm gonna have to just deal with this. And quite honestly, when I signed up for the show, I was like, why are you doing this? Why are you signing up? Why are you really signing up for this show? And I had the choice then to sign up or not sign up. And I decided to sign up. Maybe that was the wrong decision on my part. Maybe I should have just walked away. But I needed answers, and I also really just wanted closure on it. And when the show started, their first regular went up, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk away. If my name, because the thing that upset me was the band had been replaced, and I was like, yeah, that's not cool, at least on my end. I just didn't think, I was like, something's not sitting right, something's not feeling right, I need to go. And then my name got called first out of the bucket, and I went up there, and it was anger. I mean, if you watch the taping for that first Austin show, I'm angry. So a lot of people will be like, oh, you were weird, you handled the interview weird. I was fuming angry, and I was trying to just do anything in my power not to punch somebody in the face, possibly. And so I was just like, I'm gonna have to keep it weird here, because that's the only thing I can do right now, is just keep it weird. I did my minute, I kept the interview weird, and I had to change my minute at the last minute because I was gonna do a new minute, and I was like, you can't do a new minute right now because you're too angry. You've got to just do something that is fresh and rolls off of your tongue, because you're a girl, and if you mess up, you know it's going to be harder. So you've got to just do the minute that you know works, even though you want to try this other thing. So that interview happens, and that's where I first found out in, verbal form, you are no longer a regular, and or no longer have a spot, excuse me. I don't want to be claimed to say I'm a regular when I'm not. But that's when I found out. I found out on the first taping in Austin, in recording, on stage, in front of a live audience. They said that was only for COVID. So the thing is, we're still going through COVID. COVID hasn't stopped. We're still in COVID life. That's why we're in Texas right now. That's why a lot of comics have moved to Texas right now, because of COVID life. So I got off that stage, walked out of the showroom, and called a friend and just discussed it out loud. Like, was I crazy to think that this is a real thing? Like, I don't understand. I felt really crazy. I was just like, I'm crazy. Maybe it wasn't a regular spot. Maybe this and that. I went through my head for that night. And on Tuesday, I went to an open mic, and down the street from the open mic was a place that there was a Kill Tony show there was a Kill Tony show that night. So I made the decision to go there, and it wasn't with the intent of talking to Tony, but I said to myself, if I see him, I'm gonna give myself permission to go up and ask him about this. because I had sent him a message saying, hey, is there clarification on this? And had no response. And again, I say this before, I'm not trying to be an asshole, I'm not trying to step over boundaries. It really was simply, we had been in communication before regarding spots. So this was completely not out of the norm. And I saw him, and I made the decision there, okay, well, after the show, I can either walk away from this, or I can go up and ask for my spot. And I did. I went up to him, and I said, what's going on with this spot? And he said, well, we have regulars that we need to cater to. And I explained to him, and that was only for COVID. And I explained to him, I was like, during COVID times, you know, things were even harder. Things were harder for comics. Like, I came in during a time that was even harder, and I think I've been doing a pretty good job. And he's like, you have been doing a really good job. And I was like, well, can I have my monthly? And he's like, well, you can either do one of two things. You can put your name back in the bucket and possibly get up every week. Or you could just take this monthly spot. And I took the monthly with the idea that it was a guaranteed monthly spot. But something just didn't sit with me right, because things had flipped around, and I'm not even saying some even deeper parts to the backstories. Things would flip around before, things that were guaranteed sometimes never transpired. People were kind of being messed with a little bit. So on my end, I was like, you know what? This monthly spot that he's guaranteeing me right now is not a guarantee. There's going to be a way that this can be fucked with too. And the fact that I'm only being addressed as the psychic has just become a gag. And I am a comic at the end of the day. I do astrology, and I do tarot, and I also perform stand-up comedy. But I've put in a lot of work into this to be reduced to this. And I need to have a little bit more self-respect right now. And I need to get myself out of this deal that I just made, because we shook on it. And if you watch this week's Kill Tony, if you watch it, I have my bit completely set up in this moment. In that my bit is about Washington, D.C. and what happened at the Capitol and how it kind of applies. And it might not be throwing, a minute of heat, but it was a story that very much applied to what happened at the Baker Street pub that night with Tony, and how it made me think of that time when I was an intern at the U.S. Senate, and how it's all kind of correlating towards, within one another. So when I was there on stage, this, last week, I made the decision, and I had a Facebook video about this, that I would sign up under my given name, under my real name, because I have been Christy Belich for so long on stage, because I was in science before. And because I was in science, I had to have an alternate Facebook page, because I didn't want to not get hired because I did stand-up comedy. And back in the day, people would not hire people for that. So I realized that a piece of my soul had been given away to this guy, whether we look at this in a metaphor or whether we look at this in a spiritual way. I really feel and it's just kind of ironic to me that last week that it snowed, the day before the taping of Kill Tony, it snowed in Texas, and it's the vibe of Austin changed immediately the week that Hollywood entered Texas. It's so hard to explain, and it's just Texas, I really like Texas. the energy of Hollywood, not so much. So I was thinking to myself, you know, whether this is a spiritual thing, whether this is something that I just need to learn, whether this damages my reputation as a stand-up comic, that is for, you know, that's for the future to decide. But in this case, like for me, it really had to do with getting out of this contract that was with this dude that really doesn't care or respect or really care about anybody. I really feel like this person, and it's a roast show, absolutely. Like, I'm not afraid of a roast. I mean, I did roast battle in New York, roast battles frequently in New York City. I've had everything said to me under the sun. It was about honoring the spot and honoring the comics that really did support the Comedy Store during a really hard time. We were the ones buying drinks and food. We were the ones supporting the venue when all the other big name comics left. And I'm sorry to put that out there. But there were comics that were still there. But I'm saying, like, you know, on an energetic scale, it was the people helping the store. It was the people helping the people, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm over speaking, but we were really supporting the waitresses, the bar, and keeping things going as much as we could, and honoring that. And there were weeks where I would save up for it. I would be like, this is my Monday budget, you know, and I wanted to make sure that the wait staff got tipped really well, because I knew that that was maybe their only work day that week. Like, so this is the kind of stuff, it's a bigger picture thing to me. And maybe other people aren't looking at it as a bigger picture thing. But the reason why I put my name down as Christina Michelle, you know, I've been told that I rigged the bucket. Maybe that's how you want to look at it. But quite honestly, I didn't. I really needed out of the contract. I knew that I would be banned from the show from that decision. I knew that I needed to be banned from that show, because I would have just shown up for my job. And that's really what it was. Is like, I did my part to show up for this thing that was given to me, and they did not do their part in being men. And avoiding being evasive and almost being like, because it's very easy to be like, you don't have this anymore, face to face or on a text message or on a direct message. But instead, I was faced with evasive behavior, and it really, just be real about it. So this past Monday, I'm on Kill Tony as real me. Like this is really me, not Christy the gag, not Christy the character that you want me to be, but Christina Michelle, the girl that does stand-up comedy because she loves it so much, that basically is in her car all the time, that's in Oklahoma City right now, just to become a better comic. You know, I left Texas last week because I just needed to go work this out on stage without the pressure of people's opinions or judgments, or being accused of being a cheater or a bucket ringer. The people that I worry about, though, are other women, because I never want to hurt women. It's hard enough to be a woman, or any minority in comedy, any woman in comedy. I never want to I don't ever want my fuck up to be their loss. So I do hope, and I also don't want to discourage other comedians from signing up for Kill Tony. I think every comic at least needs that feeling of getting up on stage in front of a recorded live audience, doing that minute, doing that roast interview. It's a good thing to have on your resume, and it's an important lesson on everything from learning how to time your jokes, learning to cut out the fat from your jokes, things like that. So I don't want to discourage people to sign up because I think it's a really good experience to have under your belt. That being said, I'm never going to go back to the show. I'm done with it. It was a good lesson. I'm moving on after this video. People can decide for themselves how they feel about my decision on signing up under my real name. Otherwise, I would have just been strung along, in my opinion. I wasn't even on stage demanding my spot. I was just pointing something out, because that's the only way I would have been given the time of day to hash it out, was to have my name even called out of the bucket. And I stuck around. I was going to walk away, but I stuck around to see if my name would be called. I do find it very interesting that the little speech that he did before I got up was about the regulars. And I do find that camera angle very interesting as well when I was on stage, that it went to a bucket camera angle. So I do find that also extremely interesting. These are just things that I found interesting, observations. But I feel clean, like Taylor Swift says. I am clean. Like, my soul is clean. I've made mistakes. I have feelings about people that I let down. But regarding that decision, especially the people from the Discord, I really made some cool friends from the Discord that I think I might have let down from this. So hopefully they'll understand my decision. But, they have fans, and you can't take away, like, I never want to take away from that for people. My decision was really solely based on fighting for myself and fighting for a spot that I had to stick up for. And I feel really glad that I got banned from the show, mainly because I just needed the clean break. So take that as you will for anybody that watches this. There's so much more to even say. This has not been easy. And I don't know if it's going to affect, how people view me in the Austin scene or in the comedy scene or anything like that. But there's a whole backstory to why I had to go up there and fight. And I don't even want it. That's the thing, is I went up there to fight for something that I just wanted done. I just wanted it done. I wanted it out of my life. With somebody that I believe was talking out of both sides of their mouth, both mainly to comics off. Promising comics things that they couldn't deliver, and yet that in turn kind of bats a comic's heart around, especially during a pandemic where they're giving up a lot of stuff to even go for their goals. And that's not just me, but if I have to stand up for what's, being done, then that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So this has been my experience. And, I'm sure I'm going to there have been some really cool messages that have come through. But then there's also people who think that there's just copious amounts of messages of what people's opinions are. So I just leaving it here. I'm going to screen record this, and I'm going to put this on different platforms just to have it out there. But for the most part, I'm still going to be out there doing stand-up comedy. I have thought, well, there will be people who look at me some type of way, and I'm just going to have to face that too. But all in all, like, I'm still going to be doing the work. Nothing's really going to change other than I don't go to Kill Tony on Mondays anymore. And that's totally okay with me. Like, but, you know, if anybody has questions, you're welcome to put a message below, even if it's against what I'm saying. Even if you're like, Christy, you are a fucking idiot. I mean, I'll sit with that too. Like, but all in all, you know, I think that there was some gaslighting involved here. And I can't even say if it's a woman thing, you know, if it's misogyny. Friends of mine said this is misogyny. I don't know if it is or isn't. I don't know. But what I do know is I'm just going to keep writing jokes, hopefully get funnier and funnier over the years. I might never be as funny as those guys. I'm okay with that. Like, I just can only be the best that I can be. So take care, peace and love, and if you're a comic, I'll see you out there. Bye.